back with Justice Roxane George. Madam George, a question I asked before the break is, what were some of the challenges? Sorry, as a woman and mother, how do you maintain your composure when dealing with severe domestic violence against women and children?
Don't have a choice. A judge can be emotional. Um, I mean, I've done a case where it was a rape trial, and clearly the woman would have gone through an extremely traumatic experience. But there were issues in relation to the identification of the accused. So when I would have had to give the charge to the jury, which we call the summing up to the jury, I couldn't be emotional about it and consider as a woman that here was another woman who was violated, as a woman, as a mother. She was a mother with young children. How traumatic, how, and her children also had, there was some evidence in relation to her children in the matter. I cannot. One has to divorce oneself from one's emotional frame of mind when one goes on to the bench and approach the matter purely from the evidence that is led in the court. And in that case, there were a number of issues in relation to identification of the accused. And therefore, I was required by law to give directions to the jury on the issue of identification. So I couldn't say, well, because of the horrible circumstances of the case, I must abandon all of that. I'm trained to be a lawyer. As I said earlier, you have to balance. Whilst in the human rights context, we must respect the rights of the accused, we equally must respect the rights of the victim. Or I should have said it the other way. Whilst we must respect the rights of the victim, we have to equally respect the rights of the accused. And therefore, I have to put both sides of the story to the jury. I even have to tell the jury they mustn't be emotional about it. So, and that may sound difficult to the lay person. How could you divorce yourself from what is maybe your private reality or your private conversations, your personal views? So I'm very passionate, as I said earlier, about the issue of domestic violence. But in the courtroom arena, I must deal with what is presented before me and the legal principles that are applicable.
In the chat room, Mignon said, Justice George is terrific. I've learned so much. It is like being in a class with your favorite teacher. I'm thoroughly enjoying this interview.
Oh, thank you very much.
What are some of the challenges you faced during your first years as a judge that you have overcome and can share with us?
What challenges I faced? Well, the volume of work, the work at DPP's chambers was a lot, but Guyanese are litigious persons. Maybe Caribbean people generally, but Guyanese we know. They love to go to court for everything. And we're trying to push Chancellor Singh in particular, who is my most senior boss, and we have Chief Justice Chang below him. In Guyana and right through the region, we're trying to push alternative dispute resolution. And Guyanese seem not to want to understand that. I want my day in court. And so I'm not saying they shouldn't have it, but some matters should be settled.
Yes.
So it is the volume of work. I have gotten accustomed to it, and I have learned how to manage the volume of work. But it's always on your back. It's like, long ago we had a never done sweetie.
Yes. Oh, God.
It's a never done sweetie. And when one comes into the job, I mentioned earlier that it's a lonely life. When one comes into to be on the bench, I have always led a fairly sheltered life, a very conservative lifestyle I have. So But when you become a judge, you can't be here, there, and everywhere. Whatever you used to do, many times you have to give it up. Apart from the workload, you can't just simply can't be any and everywhere because the person who you might meet and interact with might be the person who has to come and testify before you, might be the person who is the accused. I remember one magistrate saying to me, guess what happened to me? I went to market and this man hailed out to me and I chatted next day before me. But we live in a small society.
Right.
And so it's not very easy to isolate oneself. You can't isolate yourself. That's a fact. We are social persons, we're social beings. But we have to be very careful with what we do and what we say and where we go.
Any advice for young upcoming lawyers?
What I used to tell my students and I tell lawyers, the word sleep is not part of your vocabulary. um, when lawyers come to be admitted to the bar, come before me for admission to practice at the bar in Guyana, I urge them what was told to me by Justice Perry, my father's good friend who admitted me to practice. Be committed to hard work. It's a tremendous amount of hard work. And I say to them also, be the lawyer's lawyer. One can always gallery in court. One can always throw one's robes. In Ghana, we wear robes. The lawyers wear robes. One can fling one's robe to the left and fling it to the right. The public might be impressed with your gallery. I don't doubt that you sometimes need to gallery. But at the end of the day, be a lawyer's lawyer. When I say that, I mean show commitment to research, good research. When you present your arguments, present them in a logical, coherent manner that the court can follow. When you're asked questions, don't be fumbling around. It annoys me. I mean, I don't like to use the word annoy, but it really annoys me when counsel come in and they're shuffling their papers, their witnesses not ready, in the sense that they have documents to tender. Well, we don't have the system as I know happens here, and we're moving to that system where you would pre-disclose a lot of exhibits and so on. We haven't gotten to that stage. We'll get there hopefully in the next year. But they're shuffling around and, may it please your honor, I'm sorry, but I don't have the document today. Could we have an adjournment? And it slows us down. It's, so I say to the lawyers, come prepared. Be prepared. Yes, you will get asked questions that are difficult, and you may have to ask for an adjournment. But once a judge sees that invariably you are a lawyer who comes prepared, you'll get cut some slack because you're on time for court. I always say, be on time for court. You're on time for court, and you're prepared.
Respect.
Yes.
Boils down to respect.
Yes.
When were you first introduced to human rights, and what did your involvement look like at the time?
As I said earlier, the absorption of human rights issues really came from high school. And then, as I said, when I left law school, when I returned to Ghana after completing my studies and got involved with the women's movement in Ghana, women's rights movement. And then Dr. Janice Jackson sent me some information on an international human rights studies program at Oxford and said, Roxane, you must apply. I'll never forget, I was in the line at the bank and I heard a voice behind me, Roxane, have you applied? No, Janice. Well, you will apply. Very well. And I got on with it. And my parents were extremely supportive, very, very supportive. And I remember Justice Aubrey Bishop, mentor to many students, myself and many, many students over the many, many years. When I went to him, I said, I need a reference for, he said, readily, anytime. So I got a reference from him, Justice Bernard. And of course, you're competing internationally, and I was fortunate to be accepted into the program at Oxford. And I had an enjoyable, it was an online course, so you did your studies online, you submitted papers online. Then we had to go up in the 2 summer periods, July, August, in the 2 years. It was a 2-year program. And then you had to write a thesis. So I enjoyed my 2 years of study. It was exhilarating to me. I learned so much. And in the application, you had to show how you practice human rights. So I like to say to persons that human rights is not an issue for the police only, the state apparatus, the state versus the citizen. I see human rights issues as people issues. It's you and me issues. I respect your rights and you to respect mine. When we speak about noise level, we have issues about noise in Guyana and who likes to play their DJ sets or whatever it is at high decibels. You're not respecting my human right.
True.
But we don't think of it that way. And when we have the discussions, when I used to have the discussions in the outreach program sessions, and where I do have interactions with students, I say to them, think of human rights within the context of how you want to live, your values. What do you expect when you live in a residential area? What do you expect in the city of Georgetown, which we are complaining about so much? Yes, the authorities, and I say authorities in the widest sense, have a responsibility to clean up, etc. But we have responsibilities as citizens. So we have to see human rights in the context of what at the international level we speak of socio-economic and cultural rights. So it's not just a political thing. It's not only a political rights issue. It's just something that is pervasive and it affects our everyday living.
What was most challenging for you when working on human rights issues?
What was most challenging? What has been most challenging? That whilst people are hungry for knowledge about human rights and they appreciate the concepts in a way, they don't always seem to want to live it. So it becomes a human right if my person is affected, but I don't appreciate the human right of the other. And we have to, and this is not only just me speaking, I've absorbed all this from, working in human rights and from attending conferences and so on. And you'll always hear language of persons speaking about the other. And the other is not me. And therefore, I can treat the other however. But if it comes to me, I want that other to treat me with respect. But we have to understand that it's a two-way. It's or even more than two-way. It's multi-way in how we want to engage with each other.
And women's rights, what did you find most surprising about people's reactions when you try to teach them or educate them on women's rights?
I'll say this in particular for the men. We found, and my friend Sandra Bart went to Lethem, and when she got there, I don't know what happened, but only men attended the session. She said they were most interested. Whenever we go out, I know that we've had feedback that some men would say, we thought it was a women's thing because it's women coming to talk. But when we started the discussion, they realized that it's not a women's thing. It's a human thing. But as I said earlier, we still have the disconnect about whilst we have the discourse in the quote-unquote classroom setting,
yes,
the question is how do you translate that into the practicalities of life? And we have a disconnect in that. So we have a very good discourse, but we're not practicing necessarily what has to be done. I'm not saying it doesn't. I don't want to give the impression that everybody is, doing their own thing. That is not so. But I'm just saying that we have challenges in that regard. And for me, for instance, the issues of violence. Violence is a human rights issue. Whether we want to speak about violence in the public sphere in terms of the police and other law enforcement agencies, or whether we want to speak about violence in the private sphere. Okay? So we have to address this kind of like split personality of, yes, within the public sphere, I will say, yes, I'm against violence against women, but at home, what's happening?
I'm talking about violence. I am just curious, as a friend too. You're in a position where you witness or you see or you hear evidence of violence, serious violence. I know you mentioned earlier about separating your emotions and so on and so forth. But you're human. You've mentioned several times that if it cuts you, you will bleed. So it must, some of it must be absorbed. How do you, let me use let me use the word detox. How do you get up, detox from all of this?
My family is very, as I said earlier, my family is very supportive. I have a few very close friends. We I get together and we have a good laugh about all kinds of things. Um, our school reunions every 3 years. I haven't attended all, but I know from listening to others that the reunions over the years have been fantastic. I've now attended my third, my fourth, because my first one was at home in Guyana. Um, and you interact with others and reminisce and old talk, as we say, and just have fun. But it's not, as I said, it's a lonely job. So I'm very careful with how I move and who I am with and what I say and so on. But once I'm with my very close friends, I have a blast.
When you're not running around or running behind your children or presiding over a case, what can you be found doing for fun or relaxation?
What can I be found for fun? Relaxation. Going to tea parties with my mother and mother-in-law. People say a very middle class way of living, but I do enjoy my tea parties when they do come along.
I hear that.
Sometimes we go to lunch, friends visit from overseas, or at home we arrange a girls' night out, and sometimes my husband and I do go out. Not very often, but we go out. We tend to celebrate as a family. We have family gatherings, as my children say. Mom, we don't have birthday parties. We have family gatherings. But yes, I try to emphasize the sense of family because they are my support.
Yes.
My family is my rock, and therefore I have my most fun with my family.
What drives you and where do you draw your inspiration?
I guess, all that I've said earlier, I mean, my nurturing, people speak about nurture and nature. I guess it's a combination of both. I think I've been fortunate to be blessed with a brain that works. When I say that works, that thinkingly works. That I do have, I don't want to sound conceited, inner strength that allow me to be independent of thought and deed. As I said, I try my best to be respectful of others so that I can command respect. And that's about it. I mean,
if you could change one thing about women's issues in Guyana, what would it be?
change. Address the issue of implementation. We definitely have to deal with have to have more work on implementation.
If you, in retrospect, what do you know now that you wish you knew before you pursue your career?
And I don't know. I mean, that is so much hard work. Why I say that is because, as I said, I speak to my students when I used to teach. And I would tell them about it, and they'd come back afterwards and say, but we just didn't know it would be this bad. And I don't think I want to do law anymore. Yes, it's stressful. It's very stressful.
And I know you have fun when you get together with family and friends. But when is the last time you laughed unusually hard?
Unusually hard. Maybe at reunion 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I had fun at the sports day. Yes. I can't run. I can't jump. I can't skip. I can't hop.
Oh God.
My greatest achievement in the sporting arena, never mind my husband and children, they've gotten all their genes in sport from him. Um, my greatest achievement, third place lemon spoon race in primary school at St. Gabriel's. So yeah, sports day at reunion. I had a oh yes, culture night. No, culture night at reunion. That was fantastic.
You know, you grew up in the era of Guyana National Service, and I believe you were a member of that service. What was the experience like, and did it how did it in any way shape who you are today?
Well, I wasn't strictly a member of the national service, strictly speaking, because I was what was called a UG pioneer, though I had not entered university as yet. I opted to do my national service before I went to study. I had to do national service because at the time, if you were getting a government scholarship, you had to do 1 year national service. I will confess, I went kicking and screaming. But however, we, my group, Special Pioneer Opportunity, SPOC 84, Special Pioneers something core, can't remember what the O is for now, 1984. We went in September and to Kimbia. That was an experience going in on the boat. We arrived at something like 3 o'clock in the morning, and the males had to offload the boat at Kimbia Wharf. And then we had to walk in. No, they took us in by vehicle, tractor trailer or something like that, but we went in. The 2 months I spent there, and maybe that helped me with the issues of inner strength, allowed me to appreciate that whilst I did enjoy my comfortable bed and my mother's sumptuous home cooking, that I could survive, that I could live in difficult circumstances. I'm not saying that we were at war and that I was in trenches anywhere. As I said earlier, I was looking at documentaries on World War One and discussions on World War Two. It was nothing like that. And I won't pretend to want to, equate myself with any of the hardships that soldiers actually go through. But for somebody coming out of high school, it was like a shock. But the friendships that I made, some of them are lasting till now. I guess I could say my husband and I got to know each other better because we were both on the same course. Um, the You learned that you had the will to do something. When I usually tell some of the young people I have chats with. I said, I learned that you could sleep on concrete, have a very good sleep on concrete. They said, absolutely not, Judge. I said, yes, you can. Because you get into an environment and you appreciate this is where I have to be and this is where I have to cope. I'm not saying that it can always happen that you will cope, but you understand that mindset. And we all coped. We all survived. And looking back, I know my mother was in a state whenever I wrote the letters home describing what we were doing and how we were going through, what we were going through, the bad food that we were eating, the proteinated rice cake, which we called it at the time because it had worms in it. And you just break it out, take out the worms, and keep going. But it taught you mental toughness. It taught you physical toughness. I mean, when I came out from national service in December of 84, I was brown as a berry. I was eating more. All the things that I used to tell my mother I will never eat, I ate. It changed you.
Yes, it does.
And I learned again, we go back to issues of grassroots. You did mention my home environment was different. Not special, but
Yes.
blessed. And I came to appreciate, again, persons of all walks of life. We were all together in it. We didn't have a choice.
Yes.
You learn to support one another. We had to carry the rifle 14-mile walk. 2 14-mile walks we had to do. And we had to do a 3-mile run. Well, of course, my 3-mile run, most of it was a walk. Garfield ran away and left everybody. That's my husband, Garfield Birchie. He ran away and left everybody, got in first. Because running to him was nothing. I remember my friend staying back with me and walking with me home. She's my friend until now. Okay, I met her in national service. The 14-mile walk, we were the first one, okay. We didn't have the second one, we had to carry weapons. After time, that weapon became like a dead weight in my hand. And I remember another friend, young man, he took my weapon, so he carried two. But you had a bond. Yes, and you learned to look out for one another. I scrubbed pots that were bigger than me. The soot in the kitchen, you wipe your eyes and the soot all over your face.
Any photos?
No, we didn't have any cameras or anything. We had no cameras nowadays. It was a lot of selfies.
I wish Jackie
But we didn't have any cameras, so all of this is just all in my memory. I read an article the other day. Somebody said, "But why can't we keep everything in our memories now? Everybody would have clicking, and taking selfies." But yeah, looking back, I would not have trade. I would not trade it. No, it was an excellent experience. I think it prepared me to. I'm not saying people who go off to university, without national service aren't prepared to go and live a life without mom and pop and having somebody to help you and look after you and guide you along. But I think it helped me and my friends who also went through national service to settle in so much easier, much more easily into life on our own and coping in a new environment.
Have your children ever heard a story?
Yes, I've told them. I keep telling them they need a dose of national service themselves.
But as a mother of athletes and the wife of a former table tennis and squash champion, what are your thoughts on children being introduced to sports at an early age and how sports can affect their academic and social skill development?
Oh, I have absolutely no difficulty, and I think children, if they have the wherewithal, should get into any form of sport, any form of activity. But that being said, anybody listening to me will say, but she never ran a race in her life. And I was horrible at long jump and high jump. Yes, I know all of that. But physical activity is important, it's healthy. But when it comes to sport and extracurricular activities generally, because it doesn't have to be only sport, it could be dance, it could be music, it could be art, drama. There's so many ways of expressing volunteerism in other ways. Some children are members of Leos and Rotaract clubs and guides and scouts, brownies and that kind of thing. But the challenge is the balance. And as parents, myself and Garfield, my husband, we have tried to emphasize to the children that you have to balance it. It's not easy. It requires a tremendous amount of time management. I said earlier that I thrive on lists. Time management is very important. But in the world that we live, time is money, time is everything. A click of a mouse could be the difference between, do we still call it mouse now, the computers? Okay, because the technology, the language is changing every other minute. But with the click of the mouse or the tap on your tablet, and I have to keep remembering tablet is not only medicinal, that's time. And therefore, issues of balance and managing yourself, how you allocate your energies. That is very important. And I've been fortunate that my girls in particular, much older than my son, have been able to manage their time. Of course, we both have to help them do that. My son is you put him on a squash court, he will play all day, all night. And they're all good at squash. And they've all done and are doing well academically. I have to say that I'm truly blessed in that regard. But as I said, I have the support mechanisms around me. In now our mothers, and so it's not easy. I will tell anybody it's not easy. I know a friend of mine says I'm a tiger mom. I don't know if I'm a tiger mom. I know that it requires discipline.
Yeah.
And I say to my children, you have to be disciplined. In life, you have to be disciplined. Yes, things will fall apart. Yes, sometimes the room gets messy. Yes, the books will get dog ears. But you have to clean it up and you have to unfold those dog ears at some point in time. And that's how life is.
Yes. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? The success of my family, the blessings that I have, yes.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
What would I tell my 15-year-old self? Hmm. Work hard and have fun at it.
And, what would you like your legacy to be?
My legacy. I don't know. That's for people to say, not for me. That I try to serve, I try to help, that I did help
That you
somebody,
did.
somewhere, somehow, in whatever small way, whether it was a kind word, a gesture, a bit of advice, a smile, a look, whether it's a serious look or, yeah. I don't really look at it in terms of what I'm leaving as a legacy or anything like that. I just try to live the best I can.
You wear so many hats.
Yeah.
You're so many things. What is one thing about you most people do not know that might surprise
Hmm. That I'm not all seriousness.
them?
that I that I can have
I
fun.
guess someone who passed through your court might be happy to hear that.
Well, I know they want me to be serious in court, so I do twitch a smile in court. Yeah, sometimes we do have moments that are a bit amusing. Um, yes, that I have fun. I do have, and participating in reunion activities. I have modeled. I didn't think that I'm very basically I'm a shy person. I know people think, and they say coming on to the end of the video, she's saying she's shy and she's been speaking so much. Basically, I'm a shy, quiet person. I prefer to be in the background of things, doing what I have to do, but not, out in the limelight. But I modeled. I've modeled now twice. In Jamaica reunion, we have our presentation, and at home, um, I have fun doing something different. I had fun doing
My
something
last
different.
question that I ask all my guests: what makes you laugh out loud?
I'm not going to. I'm not going to laugh out loud because
Roxane.
there are a lot of people out there who know I have a very loud laugh. Let me put it that way. Um, when my friends and I get a good joke,
Right.
and you get a good Guyanese belly laugh, yeah.
I know the belly laugh.
Yes, yeah.
Time crept up on us, and I went over time a little bit because I wanted to ask you some questions. So I apologize for that, but I must say thank you so much, Roxanne, and I'm really honored, and I'm sure our audience has benefited from this conversation. But more importantly, because it is so difficult to pin you down or get a time slot from you. You're so very busy. So it really is an honor and a privilege to have you here tonight.
I thank you very much for having me, and I wish all your viewers and listeners and yourself all the best in the future.
Can I say one more thing? I must also thank Rose Cadogan,
My dear friend.
our dear friend, for making this possible. So thank you and good evening.